Hello everyone and welcome to the To Explore Wellness channel. If you've got a sweet tooth but also have protein and health goals, then this is the video for you. We're gonna be making 4 super simple and super delicious protein yogurt clusters. And these aren't just your typical yogurt clusters. Each one is gonna have its own fun spin and flair to it. And they're great because they're gonna be low in calorie, higher in protein, and packed with nutrients compared to your typical dessert. If you're new here, hi, I'm Amy, and I've successfully lost and maintained a 40-pound weight loss by making healthy and delicious recipes just like these and incorporating healthier habits into my routine. This is after years of unfortunate yo-yo dieting, so if you're struggling with that, I'm here to help. Let's go ahead and get started with these delicious recipes. First one is going to give us some tropical vibes. So we're gonna start with just kind of 4 base ingredients, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to show you what we're gonna coat these with once they're out of the freezer. So we are going to use mango chunks because, I mean, mango's just delicious. Of course, we're gonna need Greek yogurt. You can use, non-fat, low-fat. You could use a vanilla if you like them a little bit sweeter, whatever works for you. We're gonna add a little bit of lime zest inside for some extra flair. And you can totally use regular vanilla protein powder, but I am going to use coconut for this one. I've actually been holding on to this flavor for a special recipe, so this is going to be it. And if you want to try this coconut flavor, I will leave a link for it in the description so you can grab it. Let's go ahead and get these mixed up. We're going to use just about a cup of Greek yogurt for this, and 1 scoop of protein powder. And we're just gonna mix this up until it is well combined. And the type of protein powder you use can absolutely affect how this comes out. This is just whey. A whey casein blend also works really well. I found that casein and some plant protein powders can get clumpy. Collagen should work fine if you have like a flavored collagen. This could also be good with maybe like a lemon collagen if you have it. And I have not tried beef protein powder with this, so I cannot attest to that. But we're just gonna mix it up until we have all the clumps out. The whey will keep it more of a yogurt texture, whereas the others will thicken it up some. And this is roughly 1 cup of mango. And of course, mix it up again. And you can kind of put as little or as much as you want. You just want to make sure, obviously, that they're all fully coated. But I think like a 1 cup to 1 cup ratio works really well. We're gonna get that lime zest in now. And you can totally just plop some of this onto a parchment lined baking tray. I'm going to use a mold to make them look nice and pretty. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. And we're gonna use one of these large scoopers. You can totally use a regular spoon. But yeah. Oh, that was a little too much. Oopsies. I'm gonna do it with a bit of a smaller spoonful this time. We can always add more. Perfect, much better. And you can totally also add like shredded coconut into this mixture. That would be really delicious as well. So that mold is all filled up. It looks like we have about enough for 6 more of the same size. So about 1.5 tablespoons, I believe this scoop is. And these come to, as is, around 24 calories a piece and 4 grams of protein. But we are going to be adding some additions at the end once they come out of the freezer, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But those are totally delicious as is once they get frozen. So with that being said, let's go on to the next recipe. This next version is a super fun one. So of course we're gonna have our yogurt base. I recommend a vanilla protein powder with this, though you could probably do lemon. I think that might be good. Some green grapes. And then the fun twist is going to be some citric acid. So we're gonna make sour grape yogurt clusters. This is fun. I'm really excited for this one. So let's make them. We're gonna make our sour grapes first by adding about a cup of grapes to a bowl. Then just a little bit of lemon juice. We're gonna sprinkle on half a teaspoon of the citric acid. And then we're just gonna kind of swoosh them around and get them nice and coated. It's easiest to mix the protein powder and Greek yogurt separately, so we're gonna go ahead and just move these out of the way. and mix our other ingredients in this bowl. All right, so another cup of Greek yogurt. And Greek yogurt is one of those things I always have on hand at my house because it can be used for so many different things. I use it in breakfast bowls. I use it in recipes like this. Plain, I'll use in like sauces, savory sauces and everything. It's just like really such a great staple. And a scoop of vanilla protein powder for this one. And of course, to give it a good mix. And because this one is a whey casein blend, you'll notice that it will get a lot thicker than the previous recipe that used just a whey blend. And if you have anything you're wondering about, you know, different protein powders, I will have my blog post linked in the description so that you can read more. I did a blog post that goes over the different varieties of protein powders, especially like how the consistencies can vary. But it's super informative, especially if you find that recipes aren't coming out the way you expected them to. But you can see this is like so much thicker. And adding the grapes to the bowl and of course folding them in. All right, and we are going to get a parchment lined paper for these. And we're just gonna take a big spoon for this one and create little clusters on the parchment lined baking tray. And you can make these as big or as little as you want. You can, you know, do 3 grapes, 5 grapes. It also depends on the size of your grapes. Mine are about 3 or 4 grapes each, but either way, it's a great snack that you can have on hand, snack or dessert that you can have on hand when you want something that's healthier, but also quenches that sweet tooth. Let's see, who gets the last one, this odd one out. Let's put it here. All right, so yeah, most of these have 4. I should have added, maybe I'm just gonna add 1 more grape to this one. It's not gonna be a sour grape, but now they're even. Anyway, I'm just gonna use the last remainder of the yogurt and then they're set to go in the freezer. And I wanted to take the opportunity to bring you in for a close-up here to show you the differences between the protein powder consistencies. You can see that with the grape, it's a very thick consistency because of the whey casein blend. However, the mango is pretty liquidy because of the whey protein powder. So keep that in mind if you are making this recipe or really any other recipe. Our clusters have had ample time to freeze overnight because one of my biggest pet peeves with these is taking them out too early and then they become too melty and difficult to work with. So that's why I like to make sure they set overnight. So starting with the mango toppings, I would highly recommend pairing this with a white chocolate. And to help all the chocolates kind of be smoother and melt more easily and get a lighter coating, we are going to add some coconut oil. Optionally, for some flavor and color, you can add some matcha to that. And we're also gonna top it with some shredded coconut for that tropical vibe. So I'm going to grab the clusters out of the freezer and we're going to get them all covered. And actually, before we get those out of the freezer, we are going to start with 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. Now, it's up to you whether you want to completely coat them or just drizzle the chocolate on top. The calories ended up being quite a bit different depending on which one you choose. So you definitely wanna make sure that you're making a version that fits your macros, but also quenches that sweet tooth. So I'm going to do a mix where I'm going to fully coat some, but then I'm going to do some with just a drizzle. So as I mentioned, we're gonna start with about 1/2 cup of sugar-free white chocolate. We're gonna do a teaspoon of coconut oil to help this melt and get really nice and liquidy, I guess you could say. All right, we have our white chocolate out and I did add more coconut oil just because I always find white chocolate stays really thick. So I did add 3 teaspoons total. Okay, and we have it nice and creamy, and this was about a minute in the microwave. You wanna do it in 30-second increments. We're just gonna add our matcha powder in now, and that was about 1/2 teaspoon, I suppose, 3/4 teaspoon. So now we just have a nice light green color and a little bit of extra nutrients and flavor. And now, of course, we can just remove these from the mold. Perfect. And then dip them in our chocolate. Get them nice and coated. And then I just have a parchment lined tray here. Let it drip a little, get some of that excess chocolate off. And I always like using a fork for this method. I guess we're gonna do a little drizzle on top too. A little bit of coconut on top before it hardens. Perfect, and it actually hardened really, really fast, so you do have to do this quite quickly. Let's give these mango tropical bites a try. Bon appetit. Wow. It's filled with flavor. It has just the right amount of sweetness. It's so good. The crunch and like that light matcha flavor, oops, pairs so well with the mango. If you're using a microwave for your chocolate, what I recommend to do and what I usually do is heat it in 30-second increments, mixing as you go. And then you don't actually want to microwave it until it's all the way melted. You want to microwave it until it's mostly melted and then keep mixing it to help the rest melt. Because once you burn the chocolate, and white chocolate I find burns a lot more easily, but once you burn it, there's kind of no coming back. So that is my microwave chocolate tip. Next, we've got our sour grape clusters. So we're gonna use a white chocolate again with the coconut oil. And then I'm gonna make a little mix of some lemon lime zest with some citric acid and sweetener, giving it that like extra little sour flavor. Again, totally optional. You could do just the white chocolate coating or drizzle. And again, we're gonna stick with about half a cup of white chocolate, and that will give us an option to do some fully coated and some just a drizzle so that you can kind of like pick and choose. So if you want to do full coating, I would say about 3/4 of a cup is probably good, or just a drizzle, you could definitely get away with just 1/4 of a cup. So let's get these ready. And that was 3/4 of a teaspoon of stevia. You could use whatever sweetener you want, and the citric acid for that sour flavor. And now we're just gonna zest a little bit of each of these. And when you're zesting, you wanna make sure you're just getting the rind. The lighter part is going to be a little bit more bitter. So that's why this looks pretty rough. Some lemon. And we just sort of like mix this up a little. So it's kind of like sugar coated. Excellent. Now let's get our white chocolate melted. We're gonna do about half a cup of white chocolate chips and about 3 teaspoons coconut oil to make sure that it's nice and melted. So you can see this is actually after 2 increments of 30 seconds. And it didn't look melted, but once you mix everything up, it's actually pretty melted. And this is actually a different brand of chocolate chips. This one's not sugar-free, and it actually is giving quite a different texture. So the type of chocolate chips you use, even different varieties of sugar-free, can definitely yield a different result and take different amounts of time to heat. We've got our clusters here, and we're gonna go ahead and dip them in. All right, let's do this. All right, so again, I'm gonna coat a few and then drizzle the rest. And I'm just gonna put it back on this baking tray. And we're just gonna sprinkle a little bit of this on top. So what I'm actually gonna do now for the rest of these is just dump in the tops instead of coating the bottom as well. And that way they all get like a nice topping without using more chocolate. Yeah, and that'll look like it's just enough for all 6. And just look at how good these look. And this one, the sour one, is the one I've been most excited about trying because honestly, I haven't tried it. So let's go for it. Wow. That is better than I even imagined. Just the right of sour notes to it, but you have that like sweetness from the white chocolate and from the grapes. And then again, like that frozen fruit texture. It's so good. Highly recommend these. Thank you so much for joining to make these recipes today. I hope you love them as much as I do. These are such a great way to have a healthier dessert that you can just have in stock anytime. And I love that there are so many different ways that you can make these and tweak them to your liking or to just try something a little bit different. I hope this gave you some great inspiration for your own frozen yogurt clusters. And please let me know in the comments if you make any of these or what types of varieties you end up making yourself. Thank you again so much for being here. And if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button so that you can stay tuned for all the delicious, healthy, high protein, lower calorie recipes and weight loss tips here on the 2Explore Wellness channel. So thank you again and see you next time.